doing? Are they okay? I knew if they're okay, as they walked through these doors, the economy was doing okay. If they weren't okay, we weren't doing well. That's what we should be thinking about, this latest jobs report. But the report reinforces the worst fears and painful truths. The economic inequities that began before the downturn have only worsened under this failed presidency. When the crisis started, we all hoped for a few months of a shutdown would be followed by a rapid economic turnaround. No one thought they'd lose their job for good or see small businesses shut down en masse. But that kind of recovery requires leadership. Leadership we didn't have and still don't have. And as a result, economists are starting to call this recession a K-shaped recession, which is a fancy phrase for what's wrong with everything about Trump's presidency. The K means those at the top are seeing things go up, and those in the middle and below are seeing things go down and get worse. It's no surprise because at root of this is the fact that Trump has mismanaged the COVID crisis, and that's why it's a K-shaped pandemic. First, the president's chaotic mismanagement of the pandemic is still holding us back. Compared to other major industrial countries in Europe and Asia, during the pandemic, our unemployment rate is still more than double, while other nations have only gone up by half. Why? Because the president has botched the COVID response, botched it badly. I've said from the beginning, we can't deal with an economic crisis until you beat the pandemic. You can't have an economic comeback when almost 1,000 Americans die each day from COVID, when the death toll has reached about 200,000, when more than 6 million Americans have been infected, when a million more worry about getting sick and dying as schools and businesses try to reopen. We all know it didn't have to be this bad. It didn't have to be this bad to begin with if the president just did his job. If he just took the virus seriously early on in January and February as it spread around the globe, if he just took the steps we needed back in March and April to institute widespread testing and tracing to control the virus, if he provided clear national scientific-based guidance to state and local authorities, if he just set a good example like social distancing and wearing a mask, it's not too much to ask. It's almost like he doesn't care. He doesn't affect him because it doesn't affect him or his class of friends. Anyone with a big enough checkbook can get rapid tests on demand. If you don't, you might have to wait in line for hours and wait for weeks to get your result, if you can get them at all. If you have the kind of job where you can work from a laptop at home remotely, risking getting COVID is very small at work. This job report shows that 37 million people reported teleworking in August. But if you work in an assembly line, or a checkout counter, or a meatpacking plant, or drive a truck, or deliver packages, you're at much greater risk. And the job report shows that more than 27 million workers reported that they couldn't work or lost hours because their employer had to close or lost business due to the pandemic. If you can hire a private tutor or have a live-in child care, you can balance being a parent and remote schooling. If you can't, you have to do your job and be a teacher all at once. Jill and I have held briefings on reopening of school safety 2 days ago. Asking the question is we hear so many parents call and ask us, educators as well, who feel like they're in an impossible situation. What are they supposed to do with our children when the president has made it so hard for schools to reopen safely? What's the alternative when it's devastating to keep them isolated from their friends and their support systems? I also said earlier this week, to the shock of many, that we lost more cops this year to COVID than on patrol. It's a reminder how an already dangerous job, law enforcement, has gotten more dangerous because of Trump's mismanagement. What may be just as shocking is many other jobs have also become dangerous due to COVID. Being a healthcare worker is now more dangerous than ever. We've lost hundreds of them this year because they weren't protected from COVID on the job. Being a meat packer is more dangerous than ever. So many have died due to getting COVID at work.